Each of us, standing in front of a group of students, searches for that perfect point where the challenge motivates action rather than paralyzes. In educational psychology, we call this area the zone of proximal development. It's the space between what a student can do completely independently and what they can't yet achieve without support. Simply put, it's a task that's challenging enough to develop, but not yet so difficult that it takes away a sense of agency. This concept was created by Lev Vygotsky, who pointed out that a person's true developmental potential is revealed when they act with the appropriate support of another person. And this is where the concept of the more knowledgeable other comes in. In the classic sense, this could be a lecturer, teacher, expert, or mentor. But in an academic environment, this role could also be filled by another student who has mastered a given topic more quickly, has practical experience, or is simply a step further in understanding the problem. Today, technologies, including AI models such as ChatGPT or Gemini, can also provide such support. This brings us to the concept of scaffolding, or building a temporary framework for learning. Scaffolding can take the form of a guideline, a guiding question, a mind map, an example, a response template, or a case study structure. However, scaffolding isn't meant to stay with us forever. Its goal is to gradually fade away. We call this process fading or the gradual withdrawal of support. At first, the student requires more prompting, but over time, they take on more and more responsibility for their actions. The gradual release of responsibility model provides a good framework for this. First, we propose modeling. I do, you observe. The lecturer demonstrates the expert's thinking and explaining their logic aloud. Then, guided practice. We do it together. The student acts, but the lecturer continues to support, ask questions, and correct errors. The next stage is peer collaboration, in which students learn from each other. The final stage is independent practice. The student completes the task independently, and the teacher's role shifts toward feedback. It's worth noting that the zone of proximal development bears some similarity to the flow state. When a task is too easy, students quickly become bored. When it's too difficult, stress, frustration, and sometimes learned helplessness arise. But when they are in the zone of optimal challenge, engagement, concentration, and a sense of I can do it, but I need to put in some effort, emerge. How can we transfer these ideas to the classroom or online space? First, we can use the think aloud method. When analyzing a text, solving a problem, or discussing a case, it's helpful to speak aloud about your reasoning. This allows students to see not only a ready-made answer, but also doubts, selection criteria, false leads, and paths to a solution. Second, we can use scaffolding in case studies. Instead of immediately throwing students into the deep end, we start with a case study with guiding questions. In subsequent stages, we reduce the number of clues until students can independently diagnose the issue and propose solutions. Third, we can use templates and sentence stems. Sentence beginning like, in my opinion, the main concern is, or evidence for this may be, or an alternative interpretation assumes, provide a structure that facilitates the initial thinking. Fourth, we can use peer instruction. It turns out that a student who has just understood a given concept can often explain it to a peer more efficiently than the professor. Why? Because their mind is still close to the same zone of proximal development. They still remember what was difficult and how to explain it. A professor, on the other hand, may suffer from the curse of knowledge, forgetting what it's like not to understand something. Remember that the zone of proximal development is dynamic. What requires support today may become part of a student's independent competence tomorrow. Our goal, therefore, is not just to help solve a specific task, but to equip students with the tools and ways of thinking that will enable them to cope independently in the future. I encourage you to be architects of such educational frameworks that help students become more independent and gradually become independent researchers and practitioners.